Amen. Amen. All right, so we are better together. Here's what I'll tell you. My wife and I, we had a kid roughly 8 weeks ago. I feel like our life has forever been changed, but my life is better now because I have my son around. We have Anderson here for the very first time today, right? We won't get him out because he's in his car seat. But I think even like the Ezzos would say, how old is he now? 4 weeks. So he's like a month behind our kid. Your life, right? Sleep less, but it's better, right? Most of the time, except like 3 a.m. when they're crying and you're like, what did we do, right? You just want to, is there a return policy on this thing, right? Or can somebody just come watch it, right? We are better together. A couple weeks ago, I sent out this thing on Facebook. I like using this every once in a while when I can. And I just asked a question. I said, hey, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? Okay, so in normal fashion, I got some of the answers I would expect from my friends. Okay, in fact, we're going to put up some of the advice here on the screen. The first piece of advice I got, and I actually got this multiple times, was this: don't eat yellow snow. All right? How many of you guys would agree that's good advice, right? You don't want to eat yellow snow. Another person said, the grass is greener where you water it, right? Now, this makes sense, right? In other words, like, hey, where you put effort, things are going to get better. Don't just wish you had something else all the time. Another person said, do one thing well. This is a pastor friend of mine. In a day and age where we feel like we have to be great at everything, he just said, hey, just do one thing well, and your life is going to get better. Do one thing well. Another said this: don't offer a complaint unless you can offer a solution. I feel like that's something my wife says a whole lot. Brandon wrote that down.
You actually told that to me.
I told that to you, and I can tell you my wife probably told that to me. So don't offer a complaint unless you can offer a solution. One of my favorite ones was repetition is the key to successful knowledge. In other words, you just keep doing it, and eventually, hopefully, you're going to learn it. Just repeat the process, right? Don't give up. Keep going with it. This is my favorite one, though, and this is from Steve, he's at Guard this weekend. He said, don't be dumb. Best piece of advice. In fact, when I was a youth pastor, I worked with students for quite a few years. I had 2 rules for my youth group. The first one was always listen to your leaders, which means, hey, if they tell you to do something, you do it. If they tell you not to do it, don't do it, because, hey, we screen our leaders real well. We vet these people. We trust them. The second thing was this: don't be stupid. Right? So in other words, like, if you think about it and you think a stupid person would do what you're thinking about doing, don't do it, right? Which my pastor's kid broke that rule the first time he ever came to my house. He decided to jump both knees first into my couch and break it. So he did something stupid. That's actually, I'm pretty sure, where the don't be stupid rule came from. It was from I think he was 13 at the time. Breaking my couch with his BO smelling body, right? Don't be stupid. Like Steve said, don't be dumb. But the best piece of advice I ever got, a lot of times when we get advice, it's from somebody sitting down with us one-on-one, and you might sit down over coffee or over a meal, or maybe some Captain Crunch, because I think that would be the best way to get good advice, would be over a good bowl of Captain Crunch with chocolate milk, because that's really where it gets good, right? It's not sugar overload. It's fantastic. But a lot of times you get advice that way. It's like one-on-one. But every once in a while you hear something, even in like a group setting, and it just sticks with you, right? Like you just can't shake it. And so I remember at 19 years old, I was interning with a student ministry, and I got to go to this conference in Florida. And what was so exciting about that was all I had to pay for was my food. So I was like, heck yeah, broke college student. I can pay for my food. In fact, I'm pretty sure my parents paid for my food, but that was really cool of them. And so I'm at this conference, and normally when you go to a youth conference, everybody who's on stage looks very similar to each other, right? So in other words, like, the more tattoos, the better at a student conference. If you have like the tightest jeans possible, like jeans so tight that they might cut off your circulation, that's probably even all that much better. If you have a beard that looks like somebody could have had it in the Civil War, it probably means you're speaking at a youth conference, right? But this one lady gets up, and she kind of stood out from the rest. She was in her mid to late 50s, I would guess, at that time. Didn't really dress the coolest, right? In fact, she didn't even try to really act that cool, but she gets up there. Her name is Jeannie Mayo, and she just starts dropping knowledge on everybody, okay? Like, this was so different than everything I'd heard at that point, because you could tell she wasn't worried about being popular. She just wanted to say what she thought was really, really important. And so at one point she said this one thing that since 19 years old, so 11 years ago, has stuck with me like crazy. She said, you show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. You show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. In other words, as your friends go, so you will go. The people you run with are going to be the people that dictate your life. They're going to get to help you make decisions. You're going to look to them for guidance. You show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. In fact, I think about it like this now. I think about friendship, and the truth about it is this, is that friendship is one of those things that if you get it right, it sets you up for success in every part of your life. But if you get friendship wrong, you're inviting chaos into every aspect of your existence. If you get it right, you're setting yourself up for success. If you get it wrong, you are inviting in the chaos. Friendship is something that we better get right. Because if we don't get it right, our life is going to mirror that. You show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Now, here's the other reality for us, though. If we just kind of take a step back and we don't even just think about advice, but let's just look at our culture. I think we can all admit this. We have a friendship problem. We have a friendship problem. We have a problem with how we define friendship. We have a problem with how we see friendship. We have a problem with the importance we put upon friendship and on relationships and on community. In fact, if you look at studies done 30 years ago, the average person had 6 close friends, okay? So that meant if your car broke down in the middle of the night, you had 6 people that you could call on that would drop whatever they're doing, they would sacrifice to help you out. The average person today has 2. 25% of people polled back in 2013 said they had 0. That means there's roughly 25% of Americans walking around today who, if something bad happened, would have no clue who to call outside of maybe their parents. They would have no clue who would step up for them when things go bad. We have a friendship problem in our culture. And so what that tells me is we need some good advice on how to have good friendships. We need some good how to have good community, how to have biblical community, how to have friends in our lives who not just sacrifice for us, but will sacrifice for them. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but life's hard. Life is incredibly difficult from time to time. You have seasons and stretches where everything in life seems like it's going incredibly well. Just give it time. And guess what? You're going to have another season or stretch in your life where things are difficult. It just seems like you can't win. Day after day, something bad just keeps happening. It's like somebody hit a domino and they just keep getting knocked down one after the other. Everything that could go wrong, it seems like, goes wrong. So for us, what we need is we need some good advice. We need some wisdom on the topic of friendships. And this is the wisdom I think that Solomon gives us in the book of Proverbs. And so before we jump into that verse, let's just look at Solomon's life real quick, kind of give you his credentials as to why we should listen to this man. Okay, so Solomon, he's appointed king over Israel by his father David. Now, David's a big deal. You've probably all heard the story of David and Goliath, right? He's a really popular figure in Jewish history, right? He's not just in the Bible, he's in history all over the place. And David appoints his son on his deathbed, Solomon, to be the next king over Israel. So Solomon, upon becoming king, has a dream one night where God visits him. And God says to him basically this: if you ask for any one thing, I'll give it to you. Ask for any one thing and I'll give it to you. Now, that's a dangerous thing to put out there, right? Like, can we admit that if somebody asked you earlier in your life, or even now, for one thing, you might ask for something very different than something that maybe is healthy, right? He could have asked for power. He could have asked for wealth. He could have asked for possessions. He could have asked for more women. He could have asked for anything, and yet here's what he asks for. He says, give me a discerning mind to govern your people. Give me wisdom. And Solomon gets this wisdom from God. God grants him this request. He gives him this incredible wisdom, and immediately his wisdom is put to the test. 2 prostitutes show up, and they have a young child with them, and both of them are claiming that the child is theirs. Now, they can't do DNA testing like we can today and just fix the dispute. They have to just argue it out. And so Solomon, in his wisdom, he comes up with an answer that maybe sounds stupid. Maybe you've heard this before. He says, okay, here's what we'll do. Bring me my sword. We'll cut this baby in half, and you can each have him. Doesn't sound like a good answer, right? But here's what happens, is the one lady decides, the one prostitute says, don't harm the child, let her have him, I don't want him to die. The other woman says, that sounds good to me. If I can't have him, neither can she. So guess what Solomon in his wisdom figures out? He finds out who the real mom is. And so automatically his wisdom is being put to the test. And then his wisdom is affirmed. People from all over the world are coming to learn from Solomon. They're looking at his kingdom and all of its splendor and seeing everything that they do, and they are blown away. They're sitting down and learning from Solomon. They want to know how he's making this work. And then Solomon doesn't even just stop there. He starts writing a lot. In fact, he writes in the Bible, the book of Ecclesiastes, which is all about the meaning of life and pursuing the meaning and pursuing the wrong things and learning from that. He writes some songs. In fact, he writes the Song of Solomon, or Song of Songs, depending on how you look at, which is a book largely dedicated to great relationships and great sex. I mean, that's pretty fantastic, right? Like, thank God that's in the Bible. And then he also writes the book of Proverbs. Now, here's why Proverbs is so incredible, is because even now in 2016, there are people who could not care less about God, about a relationship with Jesus Christ, but they will read Proverbs because it's so practical. And there's so much wisdom in there. There's so much insight in there. In fact, when you read Proverbs, it almost seems like it shouldn't be in the Bible from time to time because it is so insanely practical. And Solomon, in Proverbs, in this wisdom, he writes Proverbs 13, verse 20. And he says this, he says, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. So in other words, Solomon is simply echoing what we've already heard this morning, that you show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Friendship is the thing where if you get it right, it sets you up for success. But if you get it wrong, you're inviting in chaos. You show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. So it seems very simple, but I think when we break it down, we see some things there that even give it some more meaning to us. And so we're just going to break down just a few thoughts in this one verse. Okay, you ready? First thing Solomon says, he says this. He says, whoever. Whoever. Now, if you study Hebrew and you go back into the original languages and you kind of break this down, this word whoever means whoever. It literally means anybody. Okay? So guess what? There's a lot of times with things in faith that they're kind of exclusive. So in other words, like, if you do it this way, it's going to work for you. If you believe in God, here's the outcome. If you don't believe in God, here's the outcome. But every once in a while, there are some things that are universally applicable. This is one of those things. He's saying, whoever. So in other words, whether you're a follower of Jesus Christ or not, this verse is going to work for you. Whether you care about God or not, this verse is going to help you. Follow the advice, it's going to work. Don't follow the advice, you're doing it to your own peril. Whoever walks with the wise. Now, he says walks with, and what I love about that is walking implies action, right? Like you're not sitting down and walking. No, you're actively walking through life with somebody. For every single one of us, we choose who we're going to do life with. You might choose to do life with nobody. You might choose to walk with people you're comfortable with. But he says this, he says, whoever walks with the wise. Now, here's what I think is really important. Sometimes what Scripture doesn't say is just as important as what it does say. So notice what Solomon doesn't say. He doesn't say, whoever walks with those that you're around the most often. He doesn't say, whoever walks with those that make you feel good about yourself. He doesn't say, whoever walks with those that it's easy to walk with. He says, whoever walks with the wise. See, for us, I think one of our main problems when it comes to friendships is how we choose our friends is based off of one thing. And many times that's proximity. In other words, we choose our friends based on who we're around the most often. We choose our friends based on who do we work with, and we see them 30, 40, 50, 60, maybe 70 or more hours a week. We choose our friends based on who we grew up with, right? Who was close to us when we grew up, and so we're friends with them. Even if they're not good for us, we're close because we were in proximity to each other, and so now we're friends. We're friends with people in our family because, once again, it's proximity. You've grown up with them. You've known them for the longest time. But here's what we know. Just because they're physically close to you does not mean they're good for you. In fact, let's just be honest, some of you guys have really jacked up family situations, okay? Like, I'm very blessed for the most part. Like, my family has, like every other family, has its weird things. We have, like, our own little bit of insanity, you know, depending on who you're hanging out with, especially on Katie's side of the family, and I can say that because she's not here today. She'll still kill me later, but that's okay. But just because you are around them doesn't mean they're healthy for you. See, we base our friendships off of proximity, but when Solomon says that whoever walks with the wise, he's pointing us to something totally different. He's pointing us not to picking people based off proximity, but picking our friends based off of purpose. Picking our friends based off of purpose. Now, here's where that's so different, is that means that as an adult, I get to choose who I'm going to spend time with. You might be stuck with people at work. You might even be stuck with people that you live with, depending on your situation. Some of you have kids, and your kids might be crazy, right? But you get to choose. In other words, this is an invitation to take ownership of the relationships in your lives. In other words, you're not a victim of your circumstances, but you get to choose who am I going to pour into and who am I going to allow to pour in to me. So in other words, guess what? Now, as a new dad, I see what's incredibly important for me is not just talking to people who have good marriages, but I want to get some people in my life that are great parents because I want to learn from them, right? I'm a pastor, and so I don't want to hang out with people who hate pastors all the time. I'll hang out with them some. But I want to hang out with people who have done this thing well and who I can learn from, who, when I get advice from them, I can trust it, right? For you, if you're broke and all you hang out with is broke people, guess what? Who are you going to learn from? Right? That's like the blind leading the blind, right? If you need help with dating and everybody you hang out with has the worst, most dysfunctional relationships, is it going to get better? No. See, if we think about the purpose in our lives, then we understand that, hey, how we determine who we're going to spend our time with changes. The metric changes. Right? I want to hang out with people who can help me and I can help them. Because this whole series is not just about looking for the right friends, it's also about becoming the right friend. Right? We need to learn how to pick the people in our lives, how to surround ourselves with people who can help us walk in purpose. Because here's the next truth that he shares in this verse. He says, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise. That word becomes is so incredibly important because what that shows me is every single one of us are in process. Every single one of us, who we are today, is going to be different than who we are 2 weeks from now. Who I was 3 years ago is very different than who I am now. We are going to constantly be becoming someone. But you show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. You get friendship right, you're inviting success into every part of your life. You get friendship wrong, you're inviting in chaos. And so I can look at my life and say, okay, if things are exponentially more chaotic than they were 5 years ago, maybe I need to reevaluate my friendships. If I want my life to be different, if I want it to be healthier, then maybe I need to look at the people around me and go, okay, who am I becoming? Because here's what sociologists will tell you. Forget scripture for a second, just sociologists. They'll tell you that we as people become the average of our 5 closest friends. You become the average of your 5 closest friends. That could count your spouse. Maybe your mom's one of your best friends, right? Or whatever the case is. But you will become the average of the 5 people you're closest to. And so when I look around me and I go, okay, if I'm the average of the 5 people I'm closest to, am I happy with that? If the answer is yes, that's awesome. If the answer is no, then hey, we need to ask ourselves, okay, do I want to become the average of those I'm closest to? Or do I need to change, once again, the metric? Do I need to look for a different purpose? He says, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. It's another guarantee. Just like he says whoever, he says if you're the companion of fools, you will suffer harm. It's a guarantee for your life. You hang out with the wrong people, you let the wrong people pour into your life, it's going to have an adverse effect on you. I mean, in fact, it always amazes me when you talk to people, especially having worked with students for so long. They would try to say, well, I didn't do anything wrong, Well, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah. But normally they were also with the wrong people. And that's how they found themselves at the wrong place at the wrong time. See, for many of us, we need to understand, truly understand, the people we spend the most time with affect us more than we give it credit for. The companion of fools will suffer harm. It is a guarantee for you and for me. So the question that I think of when I read this verse and I begin to process it and I'm working through it, even in my own life, and I'm wondering, okay, if Solomon says that I need to walk with the wise, well then the question becomes for me, how do I actually begin to walk with the wise? How do I change my own ways, right? Maybe I'm not really bad at it, but I need to get better. Or maybe I'm terrible at it and I definitely need to get better. How do I begin to walk with the wise? And so I have an answer for you. That at first might not seem like that great of an answer, but if you give me a chance, I think it's going to make more sense here in just a minute, okay? So the answer is this: if you want to walk with the wise, the best thing I can tell you is that you need to join a small group. The best thing I can tell you is that you need to join a small group. Now, before we talk about the benefit of it, let's just kind of talk about the elephant in the room, okay? So the elephant in the room when it comes to small groups, or let's just even say biblical community, or the idea of doing life with other people, the elephant in the room is that can often be messy. The other thing people think of is they go, okay, maybe it's not even just messy, but it's definitely inconvenient from time to time, right? Like we work, we have lives, we have things going on. The other thought is, well, it's like, well, last time I hung out with people and I had friends, somebody really hurt me. Right? Maybe somebody said something that they didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but it really hurt your feelings. Or maybe they meant to hurt your feelings and it definitely hurt your feelings. Or maybe something was brought up that you were uncomfortable with and you're just like, I don't think I can handle that. And you've just been stabbed in the back way too many times. And so for me to say that the way to walk with the wise is to join a small group, to walk in community with other people, you're thinking that's complete garbage. But can I tell you why I think this is so important? It's because I believe that this is for you and for me, that you will run in the direction of those you run with. You will run in the direction of those you run with. So what that tells me is this, is that if I've got a group of people who are imperfect at best, but we're all pursuing the same thing, guess what? Even that imperfect group is going to have a better chance of reaching that goal. If I'm by myself and I try to reach a goal, it's incredibly hard. But if I have a group of people who are there to hold me accountable, if I have a group of people who are committing to pray for me, if I have even a few people in my life who value me and my family more than they value what I can do for them, if I have those things, I'm set up for success. I can walk in collective wisdom, because here's what will surprise you every time you're with a group of people, is that there's wisdom that comes out of that group that you might not expect just based on who you see in the circle. But when you get into a group of people, what happens is it's iron sharpening iron. It's you getting to walk through life together week after week, getting to know what's going on in each other's lives, getting to see what it looks like to walk in that community. And yes, it will be inconvenient. Yes, I guarantee you there will be times where it's messy. I can practically guarantee you that you're going to get your feelings hurt. But here's what I'll tell you, all of it is worth it. When we get in the most trouble is when we're the most isolated. My fear for us, though, is that we have become so accustomed to being isolated that we feel like that's just better than being in community with other people. But the reality is, I can never be all that God has called me to be and all that God created me to be on my own. God is going to put people in my life for stretches and for seasons to sharpen me and to round me out. I have people I look back on even in my own life that I go, okay, I don't talk to them anymore, I don't hang out with them anymore, but if I didn't know them when I was 21, my life would be very different. If I didn't have that job when I was 22, my life would be very different. If I didn't have that key conversation when I was 25, how different would my marriage be? If I didn't know any better and I didn't have somebody with more wisdom around me when I was 29, would I have given up? God in his wisdom is going to put you around people that are for your benefit and for your good, but you and I have to decide, are we going to jump in or are we going to do what's more comfortable and sit on the sidelines? And so here's what we're getting ready to start next month. The week of September 11th, we're going to have 2 groups that meet every single week. You can join whatever group you want. There are no restrictions on you. It might be a better fit based on the night it's available. It might be a better fit based on whether or not you have kids. We're going to have one group where we're going to work to provide childcare, and another group where we're not, okay? So if you don't have kids and you don't like kids, that's probably the group for you, all right? If you're like, if I'm around kids, I want to hurt myself, don't come to the childcare one, because that's probably where most of the people with kids are going to go. But we want to, as best we can, eliminate the excuses that keep us from engaging in community with each other so that we can actually grow together. In fact, the purposes of these groups is we want to equip each other to grow in God's purpose for our lives. So what we're going to do, we're going to take what we talk about on a Sunday morning, and we're going to translate that over to another night of the week. And we're simply just going to hang out. You might do any number of things in those groups. In fact, we're intentionally kind of leaving it open. But in those groups, we're going to grow together. We're going to pray with each other. We're going to talk intentionally about certain things for at least a little bit. And then we're going to spend a lot of time just hanging out and having fun. Because once again, you will run in the direction of those you run with. So here's my challenge for you today. And this is a very easy, very practical step. You're not committing to anything today, okay? I just simply want to gauge your interest. And so when you came in this morning on your chair, we got these fancy new connection cards, okay? They're brand new. They're really nice, professionally printed, really, really good. I want you to write on them, okay? And so we gave you pens as well. And so what I would love for you to do is on that card, there's a box that talks about being interested in a small group. And so if you are interested in joining a group, remembering, hey, even if you have kids, there's something for you. If you're interested in joining a group, you'd like more information, or you just like to talk to somebody about that, here's all I want you to do. Just check the box. You're not committing to anything, right? So it's not like I'm going to show up to you 3 weeks from now and go, excuse me, you checked this box. How come you're not in a small group? Liar, right? That's not how we roll. But this is just to gauge interest so we can help you, okay? And so what you can expect this week, you just check that on there. I'm going to follow up with you this week, okay? Somebody, if it's not me, it'll be somebody, all right? We're going to follow up with you this week because once again, you show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. You get friendship right, you're setting yourself up for success in every part of your life. You get friendship wrong, you're inviting chaos into every part of your life. Walk with the wise and become wise. The companion of fools will suffer harm, and you will run in the direction of those you run with. So I would choose wisely. Let me pray for us.